This might surprise you, but I actually think podcasting gets harder the longer you do it. I know you might think, well, as a skill set, you improve. Yes, but when it comes to identity and knowing who you are and knowing what to say, honestly, I actually think it gets harder over time. Podcast Growth Nation, today for episode number 146, I think podcasting actually gets harder the more you do it, and here's why. I have had so many identity crises over the last 8 years of podcasting, and I do believe I have more the longer I do it, and I'm convinced this is the reason why. Yes, from a skill perspective, you improve. Yes, from a speaking perspective, interviewing perspective, research perspective, we improve. But the thing that changes the most over the course of time is us. So as you change behind the scenes, as you learn more, as you become more confident, whatever it is, your podcast kind of sort of has to shift because you're the host and you create the voice of the podcast. At the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. Eventually, the more you do it, you start to understand, okay, I know way more about myself. Now I want to show up authentically on the podcast, where in the past, I just wanted to show up and get it done. I'm pretty sure my camera just did a thumbs up because I did a thumbs up. It's a whole thing over here today. This is also my second time recording this episode because for some reason the video didn't work the first time. You got to do what you got to do. You think I'd have it figured out by now. But I think our identity is changing, and you have to give yourself the permission to allow that to happen. Again, easier said than done. But I still, to this day, don't always know who I want to be on the podcast. You've heard me change things up a little bit here at Podcast Growth U. I want to talk about mindset, and I want to talk about identity, and I want to talk about maybe some things that other podcasts about podcasts aren't talking about. Because to me, that's why I started this whole thing, to become more self-aware and help other people become more self-aware. That's scary. I didn't have the courage to do that in the beginning. I wanted to do something completely different. I thought I was going to have every episode about stats and industry stuff and what's going on, and I just think that's not the way I want to do it. So the voice, the direction, the vibe, if you will, of the podcast has changed over time. So what can you do about it? Maybe right now you're out there saying, yeah, no, that makes sense. When I started this podcast, I thought I was a certain person, and as I've evolved as a person, I've evolved as a host, and I'm afraid for the podcast to go in that direction. Okay, this has helped me. The understanding that the person who is listening to episode 1 might not necessarily be the person who should be listening to episode number 100. What do I mean by that? In the beginning, our podcast, Next Level U, was essentially self-improvement for beginners because I was a beginner. Now, 2,000 episodes later, it's a little bit different. Now we want to talk more about success principles as opposed to personal development all the time. So if we think of these two sentences. Next Level University is a podcast that helps you become more successful in health, wealth, life, and love through the fundamentals of personal development. Versus Next Level University is a personal development podcast that talks about life, love, health, and wealth that can also help you achieve more success. Those are two completely different podcasts. Even though the words are the same, the order's in a different way. It can be the same exact thing for you. So this podcast is still, I want to help people grow, scale, and monetize their podcasts, but it's not as much, I want to help you grow, scale, and monetize your podcast, but I'm only going to talk about things that are specific to podcasting. You even hear me say it. We talk all things podcasting. Mindset is a massive piece of podcasting. Speaking, sales, all of that is really, really important. So I'm doing the same thing here, but it has evolved. I want to help you become successful as a podcaster, but I'm not just talking about 3 buckets. I want to talk about a bunch of buckets. So one is just giving yourself the permission to grow. That is one. 2 is reviewing your episodes to see how it feels when you're not in front of the microphone. Right now, I'm in podcaster mode. If I replay this back and I am reviewing it and I'm listening to me say a sentence and I get to the end of the sentence and say, okay, I'm going to pause it and guess what I would have said next. If what I actually said next is what I guess that I would have said next, that's probably a really good suggestion. That's a really good way to figure out whether or not you're present in episodes too. You ever listen to your old interviews and say, I am such an idiot. Why didn't I ask this question? It's because you weren't present. And now you are. You're present when you're reviewing. You're not always present in the process of doing. So I would say that's the second thing. And I think sitting down and figuring out who you are, like making a list of what you believe in, what you value, what you enjoy talking about, from what perspective. If you were to sit down, and again, I know this is personal development stuff, but if you were to sit down and say, okay, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much do I believe in myself as a podcaster? And you did the same thing next month. If that number is different, your content should probably be different too. Now, I'm not saying it's super recognizable from the outside. This is more an internal thing than anything because you're the voice. But it's a different perspective. The examples might be a little bit different. These are very, very, very small, seemingly invisible tweaks that maybe only you can see. But the point of it is you feel better when you record episodes.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Hurwitz. So last year I wanted to quit everything. I wanted to throw in the towel. I wanted to hang up my microphone. And Kevin said no. Kevin said, keep going, Jen. You've got this. And oh my God, I'm going to cry. And I did. Coaches need coaches, y'all. And working with Kevin has been one of the best experiences of my life. Oh my God, I'm crying. Kevin, you are the best. I could not do this without you. And thank you. Thank you for being you and the amazing human that you are.
I feel way better now knowing that I have given myself the permission to talk about episodes like this. Will I lose listeners because of it? Maybe. But I want to do an episode like this because it's important for me to do it and it feels aligned. Alignment is one of the keys to longevity because you're not going to be able to do something misaligned for very long. It just doesn't work that way. And you're not going to enjoy it. So I think that's the third piece, is really sit down and try to figure out who you are. I know it sounds weird. It probably sounds stupid. It probably sounds just pie in the sky. But your podcast can only be as authentic as you know who you are. And that's like the identity work that we're talking about here today. So I would say those are kind of the 3 steps. Outside of that, a lot of it is deeper understanding. A lot of it is just awareness. You're going to change. You've heard me say this before. I can't guarantee you're going to make money with a podcast. I can't guarantee you'll grow your audience. I say this to people all the time when they're starting. What I can guarantee is if you do podcasting for long enough, it will teach you more about yourself than probably anything else. And that's the hard thing, is you learn about you and then you have to jump into the public eye and figure out who you are in front of other people. So yeah, give yourself a chance to test it. Give yourself permission and listen back to your content. When I listen to old episodes, even of this podcast, I'm different. I wasn't as confident. I wasn't as certain. I also wasn't as probably willing to look wrong or like I didn't have all the answers. I've evolved a lot in 146 episodes, just like you. But I'm always thinking of that. I want to make sure I'm showing up authentically, and I want to make sure that I understand what the voice of the podcast is, what the direction of the podcast is. And I think that's just one of those awareness things. So, shorter episode today. I guess we're not going to hit the 20-minute mark. I was around 20 minutes doing the first episode, but honestly, I think a lot of it was probably filler. So I would say this episode, all things considered, is probably way more valuable. Let me know what you think on this. Reach out, comment below, whatever, wherever you're watching or listening. Let me know. Is this something that you struggle with? Because I don't think people talk about this very often because there's not a tactic that fixes it right away. This is something that kind of happens forever. The more I podcast and the more I learn outside of podcasting, the more it makes me question everything when I'm podcasting. And I don't think that's a me thing. I think if you're growing, that's probably something you're going to deal with too. So 1, you have permission. You have permission. 2, lean into who you think you are and see how it feels. 3, review your content. 4, make a list of who you think you're becoming. And those 4 things right there alone are going to be a game changer. And then it'll happen again in 2 months or whatever it is. You do the same thing. I mean, that's really what I go back to is, who am I talking to? Who do I want to talk to? How do I want to talk to them? And honestly, what feels the most right for me? I don't want to be toxic and come off in a certain way. I don't want to give myself permission to do that. I want to get off an episode and feel like, yeah, that was the best version of Kev. The best version of Kev is evolving and changing, just like the best version of you is evolving and changing. All right, cool. If you are looking to evolve and change your podcast, we have our next level podcast Accelerator starting on April 15th. So this is a group coaching program specifically for podcasters. It's 12 weeks. The first 4 weeks, we talk about mindset, identity, habits, all of that stuff. So we start by leveling up yourself. The next 4 weeks, so 5, 6, 7, and 8, weeks 5, 6, 7, and 8, we talk all about podcasting. So I teach all 4 of those sessions, and it's all about podcasting. And then the final 4 are level up your business. So if you're somebody who wants to turn your podcast into a business or something that makes some money, maybe you don't want to do it full time, the last 4 sessions are catered to that. So this is somebody who is a podcaster who really wants to get to the next level. With a discount code, it ends up being like $96 a month, and you're getting 4 calls per month. So it's like $24 a call. Is a rare bargain. We would love to have you if you're interested. We only take 10 people per quarter, so strike while the iron's hot, because by the time you hear this, it might be sold out, but check in. Email me, send me a message, and we can get it figured out. Last. Every call gets recorded, so even if you can't attend live, you have access to the recording, and everybody is part of a WhatsApp group. So you can ask questions in there, all of that happy jazz. We'll have the link in the show notes for that. If you're looking for a free thing, I am offering free 30-minute podcast breakthrough sessions. We'll have the link in the show notes for that as well. I hope for you, you're finding your identity and it's not too uncomfortable. That is the simplest thing I hope for you today. Lean into it. You're going to grow. The voice, quote unquote, of the podcast is always open to change. It's got to be aligned. If you want to do it for a long period of time and you want to feel good about doing it, it's got to be aligned. All right. Until next week, keep on crushing it, keep on podcasting, and I will talk to you all then.